secretory portion, and ducts. And ducts are transporting secreted material. Endocrine glands lack ducts and they lose their connection with surface epithelium. So these cells, endocrine cells, they produce hormones and hormones are absorbed by blood capillaries. You can observe blood capillaries around endocrine glands. And so hormones are transported in blood to target cells. So exocrine glands have ducts for transport of secreted material and endocrine glands lack ducts. You will study endocrine glands in the next term. Today we will classify exocrine glands. Most exocrine glands are multicellular like this, but there is very good example of unicellular gland which is called goblet cell. It is scattered in covering epithelia. You can see here columnar epithelia, simple columnar epithelia, and goblet cells scattered in covering epithelia. Goblet cell has narrow basal part and broad apical part. Basal part contains nucleus and well-developed rough endoplasmic reticulum. You can see TM of this cell, transmission electron micrograph. So in narrow part, you can observe the nucleus and well-developed rough endoplasmic reticulum. Apical part contains Golgi apparatus and secretory granules. So apical cytoplasm is filled with secretory granules. These granules contain glycoproteins mucins. Mucins are released from the cell by exocytosis. They hydrate and become mucus. So goblet cell produces mucus. It's unicellular gland and it is numerous. These cells are numerous in the epithelia covering small intestine, large intestine, and also respiratory tract. So you can see here simple columnar epithelial tissue lining small intestine. Neighboring cells are columnar cells. They have brush border at their apical surface. But among columnar cells, you can observe goblet cell. It has different shape and different staining properties because it produces mucus. Mucus is released from the cell. It covers the surface and protects and lubricates this tissue. This is very nice TM. You can observe abundant area in basal part of the cell nucleus, well-developed Golgi in apical part and secretory granules, and during exocytosis, mucins are released outside the cell. Neighboring cell is columnar cells. It has microvilli at the apical surface, and these microvilli form brush border. Goblet cells are numerous in the small intestine, in the large intestine, and also in the pseudostratified epithelial lining trachea and bronchi. Now, what about multicellular glands? Most exocrine glands are multicellular. And they are classified according the number of ducts and secretory units and according the shape of secretory units as well. Wait a minute, I want to close the window because it's noisy outside. Can you see these diagrams? Ducts are shown in pink color and the secretory units are shown in green color. So, if the gland has only one duct, it's called simple. But if glands have many ducts, they are called compound. So, exocrine glands may be simple or compound. In simple glands, ducts do not branch. In compound glands, ducts have branches. What is the shape of the secretory unit? It may be tubular or it may be sac-like or acinar. So according to this morphology criteria, we can classify exocrine glands, and now I will describe all these types. This is simple columnar. Why? I will explain now. Because it has only one duct and only one secretory unit, which is tubular. This is simple tubular but coiled. Why? Because it has very long tubular portion, which is coiled. Said, it's simple branch tubular. It's simple because it has only one duct, but it's branched because it has more than one, two or more secretory units, and shape of these units is tubular. This is simple acinar. Why? Because it has one duct and one sac-like secretory unit. Simple branched acinar. Why? Because one duct, two secretory portions, both are acinar. Now look at these three types of glands. They all are branched, compound. Why are they compound? Because they have many ducts. Smaller ducts are converged into larger ducts. And they are branched because they have also many secretory units. But in this gland, all the secretory units are tubular. In another, they all are acinar. But look here, last one. It contains both acinar and tubular secretory units. That's why it's called tubuloacinar. So now I will show you a light microscopy image tissue sample of tubuloacinar gland. You can see many secretory units. Some of them are sac-like. They are acinar and they are intensely stained. Other secretory units are lightly stained and they are tubular. So this gland contains both. Now what about the nature of produced of secreted substances? Acinar secretory units consists of pyramidal cells. They produce proteins, for example, enzymes, and they are called serous cells, and they stain intensely. Tubular secretory units contain cells that produce glycoproteins that are heavily glycosylated. For example, they produce mucins, and these cells are lightly stained. So you can easily distinguish them from each other. So such gland containing both acinar and tubular secretory units produces mixture of enzymes and mucus, because acinar secretory units produce proteins, enzymes, and tubular secretory units produce mucus. Is it clear for you?
Teacher, can you repeat this part? Just secretary.
Some secretory units in this gland are sac-like. They are acinar. They are intensely stained, and they produce proteins, for example, enzymes. Other secretory units are lightly stained. They produce mucus. They are tubular in shape. So, in this gland, you can observe both acinar and tubular secretory units. They have different staining properties. That's why you can easily distinguish them from each other. Acinar secretory units are intensely darkly stained, and the tubular secretory units are lightly stained. They secrete different substances. Acinar produce proteins, and they are called serous cells, and tubular produce mucins, and they are called mucose cells. Now look at this diagram. This is diagram of endocrine gland. These cells are endocrine cells. They produce hormones. Arrangement of cells may be different in endocrine glands. In this gland, the cells form um, cords, and you can see blood capillaries around the cellular cords. Here you can observe another arrangement of cells. They form follicles. Follicles are spherical structures, and they have lumen inside for temporary storage of hormones. For example, thyroid gland consists of follicles, and simple cuboidal epithelium forms the wall of the follicle, and in the lumen there is secreted material. But around the follicle, you can see rich capillary network, and you know that hormones are absorbed by blood capillaries and transported in blood throughout the body. So that's all for today. If it's difficult for you, I can show you another slides. Wait a minute. I will find slides with Georgian titles. Wait, maybe you like the slides. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Let's compare once again. Uh, SNR and tubular secretory units. This is a single secretory unit. It's sac-like. It consists of pyramidal cells. These cells contain nuclei and well-developed rough endoplasmic reticulum in their basal part. And apical part of these cells is filled with secretory granules. That's why basal portions of the cytoplasm stain with basic dyes, while apical parts of the cells are acidophilic. They stain with acidic dyes. In this case, they stain with using pink. So these cells stain intensely with basic and acidic dyes, and these cells produce proteins, for example, enzymes. Now look here. These are tubular secretory units. They contain cells with flattened nuclei at their basal part, and apical parts are also filled with secretory granules, but the secretory granules are lightly stained because they contain highly glycosylated glycoproteins, heavily glycosylated glycoproteins, for example, mucins. And mucins are usually washed from the cells during tissue preparation procedure. That's why these cells stain lightly. Now, look here. This gland contains only acinar serous secretory units. These are cross sections of ducts, and these are acinar secretory units. They produce proteins. But in some glands, you can observe both. Look at the diagram. Both types of term secretory portions. This is acinar secretory portion, but this is tubular secretory portion. They have different shape and different staining properties. This is large duct. It's surrounded with connective tissue, and the wall of this duct is lined with stratified columnar epithelium. It was written in your textbooks that stratified cuboidal and stratified columnar epithelia are rare types, and they are found in some ducts of exocrine glands. Now you can observe the large duct of exocrine gland, which is lined with stratified cuboidal and columnar epithelium. So, simple columnar, simple branched tubular, simple acinar, simple branched acinar, compound branched acinar gland. You can see now with light microscope the same gland. This is compound branched tubular because it contains only tubular secretory units. And this is compound branched tubuloacinar because it contains both. You can here see here acinar and tubular secretory units. Acinar secretory units are darkly stained and tubular secretory units are lightly stained. So this gland produces both proteins and mucus. It produces mixture of proteins and mucus. Is it clear now or not?
Yes, doctor.
So now tell me please what's your homework for next lesson?
Chapter 4 fully.
To
Fully.
the end.
Yes. And next lesson I will show you on title slides.
Okay, doctor.
I will ask you about glands first of all, and then I will show you on title slides, and you will identify a type of tissue. We should practice because you have slide exam at the end of the term. That's why I'm trying to practice with you to identify on title slides over the lesson.
Teacher, next week is it on university? At university?
What?
Is next week at university?
I hope, but I don't know exactly it yet. It depends on epidemiologic situation in the country.
Okay, teacher.
We are told that we will meet at the university from 19th of October, but I don't know exactly. Maybe some changes or not. Nobody knows yet.
Okay, doctor. Hopefully
Do
we
you
meet.
prefer contact classes or online classes?
Con-
Contact, teacher. Of course,
Of
contact.
course, of course. I
ما أنا
also
عارف.
So next lesson we have online lesson again.
Yes, it's on Saturday.
When are you coming? Yes, on Saturday.
It
So
will be
study
17.
chapter 4 till the end, please.
Mhm.
What do you want, While?
No, 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 nothing.
Nothing.
Yes.
So that's all for today. We can finish our class.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Thank
Try
you,
your
doctor.
best.